And we are on air.
Awesome. Good morning, everybody. I know it's been a while since we've had a webinar, but we just couldn't wait. You know, we've got some early previews of version 22 and early previews of different things. And we wanted to talk to everybody about it and see, let y'all know what's coming in 22. As well, we don't want you to forget Arlington, Texas will be our developers conference, as well as training on Windows Mobile and some on web services. There will be training on the classes, so that way you can get a better understanding of how to use them in your application to gain speed and capabilities, as well as some new web snippets and things like that from Pete, and setup and some Windev functionality that Glenn is going to be presenting. So there's going to be a week-long versus classes and things like that all over the place. So this should be great. It should be awesome. So don't forget that the dates have been posted up there. wxdefcon.com. You can look and see what you want to do, and if you upgrade to version 22 prior to signing up, you can come in for a reduced cost.
Right, and May 1st is the deadline on early bird, so.
May 1st is the deadline, and here's the reason why. With the advent of so many ways that you can get discounted rooms, we did not block off any rooms, so if you are coming, I would certainly get your reservations early for the hotel.
And don't forget, Jerome's going to be there for
Absolutely. Jerome from PC Soft will be there. He will be doing the keynote speech because we'll make him, and he'll be around there for you to discuss different things with him, as well as get hopefully some crossed fingers insights of what you've been trying to do, and back and forth with Jerome, which is be another great thing. We just got the prelim, and it has not been released yet, but we just got the preliminary version of the PDF today, and we've been rapidly going through the thing, trying to glean out a few things for everybody to see in the different areas. So now this has probably still got some French pieces in it, things like that, that's still in here, but we've been kind of going through it, trying to pull out different pieces, and I wanted to kind of show you a couple of them and how they have a little bit to work with. One of them, one of the biggest, is the word processing control. This gives you a full docx, Word docx function, which is great. It allows you to do search and replaces in it, change paragraphs in it, do all kinds of things to where you can develop a full-blown word processing documentation in your window. This would be good for things like doctors' offices, lawyers, software, some of those things, right and left, build templates. And I'm going to show you how that works, because I've been playing with it now for about a little over a week, and I'm going to show you how that works in a little bit later on when we get into the software. So that was one of the things that I wanted you to see complete. Also, they have an integrated image editor, so you can actually edit the image that you bring inside the IDE to make it a different size, do different things with it. Now, they're going to provide, let's go back to the word processing a little bit. You can see they got to change a few spelling issues and stuff like that. But the ribbon control is an internal window, which means that you can totally customize the internal window for those controls and really make your Word document do what you want to do. Also, probably not in the first pre-release or the beta that you get, but it should be coming pretty soon. Your saving of the document could go straight into your hyperfile SQL or into a blob field or a buffer field and stored in whatever database you have. I know I've already done in mine. I've basically cheated by saving it to docx and then doing fload and putting it in the database that way. That works already. So there's a way currently to work with it even in a beta version. I can show you how that's done. They're supposed to provide a French and English spell checker. We probably need to spell check the spell checker, and we'll probably do all right. But those are both going to be in there as well, so you'll have spell checking with it as well. Getting through preview printing. This is the other thing on the tables that I wanted to go through, and I'll show you an example of how this works as well, but this is one of the items that I'm going to show you an example code of. You not too long ago got the ability, or you've had the ability for a while now, to put a container in your table. And a container was able to put in multiple fields to kind of group them together logically, especially edit fields and things like this, but that was about as far as it went. They were useful in some areas there, but not completely. Now what they've allowed is an internal window. So literally you can define the entire internal window and put it inside the container. Then what they did was allow you to offset that window. Instead of the container being on the far right or far left, depending upon how you set it, you can actually put it below your record row. I'm going to show you how that works, because I've wrote a deal in there. We work with a product called Teamworks. Yeah, that we handle all of our WXperts tasks and things like this, since we're in different areas. And they have a full-blown API with it, so I've been writing stuff to bring it down into a desktop to see how it works. And we're going to be advancing doing a whole class deal wrapped around Teamwork, so that way you can actually embed it inside your program if you wanted to. But it's really kind of cool the way it works, because what it allows you to do then is you get to see how the table jumps and moves around. So this is what you end up seeing. You got each record, and then all of a sudden you got a full-blown internal window there that's showing you the detail of whatever you're looking at, whatever record you're looking at. Now this is pretty cool. I mean, to be honest with you, it's pretty cool. There's also some additional features with loading memo fields and stuff that will be doing it in the background for you, so you don't have to worry about it. And what it'll be doing is spinning while you go ahead and see your own data as it comes through. They've put in custom formulas. You can anchor controls and breaks. You've also got a magnifier on the header, so that way you can do a search, kind of like a web page search type thing. I haven't got into that yet. Haven't looked at that yet, but I plan to. So all in all, I think these are two major features that's in Windev that is going to be absolutely phenomenal for displaying or interacting with your user base, that I think they'll enjoy immensely. Some of the other things is coding and things like this, and I want to talk about a little bit about that. One of the things that we get into is when you come back from an edit or you come back from an insert, we wrote things in the class code to go ahead and search for the record you just inserted and do a table select plus on it, and then you do a table position. And what the table position does is basically make sure that your record that you just edited or the record that you just inserted comes up in the middle of the screen, so that way they can see what they just did. Well, they added a new new parameter to the table position called TA visible. So now what it does is that if the row is already visible, nothing's going to move around, because usually you'd see a little flash as things kind of reset. If the row is not visible, then the table will automatically scroll to make the row visible. So this really makes it a little bit cleaner and a little bit easier for your users not to see some flashes and flipping around of the programming. Well, some of the other things, the scheduler and organizer has got some new features to it. You can move the resources. The other thing that you can do is trap whatever the user set as a default or set as their selected range and things like this. And the last thing that I really, really like is it allows you on the scheduler to actually set available hours for each one. And their example is with the doctor, which I can obviously see, is that on each day, the doctor may be in the office at different times during the day or a different period during the day. This allows them to set up those hours for each resource. So each resource in the background can see exactly how many hours that they're available to put appointments on. This is a great little feature because it was very difficult in earlier versions to kind of put a background view of their hours as it works. So it was really, that's nice. That's very nice as far as that's concerned. I'll go through the Gantt stuff. I'm going to get down to, they've got some new charts, which, you know, that you can look at, composite charts, things like this. But there's some, one of the things that they kind of done is they give you the ability to see multiple items in the tooltip in the little function call. I think that's pretty neat. I haven't got into it completely. The other way is that you have different themes for your IDE. You can have a dark or a light theme, which is, some people like the dark setup. So in other words, it's pretty cool as far as that's concerned. You got your own modifier, which you can set up your favorites in your modifier that allows you to work. We use that a lot when we use when we select multiple fields. It's going down here because I wanted to get, there's the integrated image editor. Now that's integrated into the IDE, so it allows you to take a 5-state image and you can edit each piece of the 5-state image on how it sends. This gives you resizing, centering, rotation, all of these features. Now more than likely we'll see the final version of this draft out probably next week is probably what we'll see. So you'll be able to go through this as we go, but I'm looking at spelling errors and stuff like that right now. So I know that they won't allow me to let anybody else see this except this way. The other thing that they've done is they've integrated the ability for mobile to Windows Mobile to be edited in Windev. In other words, you can actually develop the project for Windows Mobile in Windev. Now, yes, well, why would you do that? Well, if you're using a Windows Universal, that's probably a very good fit, okay, especially Windows Universal, because you can do a Windows desktop program as well as a Windows tablet program exactly at the same time, and it allows you then to see how each one of them will look in each one. But that also means you can do Android and iOS and all of them, basically. You still have to have the USB dongle for Windows Mobile because it won't work without it, which is one of the key things. And so you're still getting the license for Windev Mobile, but integrating the two means you're primarily working in two products in essence. Windev and WebDev is primarily your two products that you're going to work at. They give you the ability to create a report directly from the looper. And I want to get, I know I'm kind of scrolling through this fast, but I want to, you know, we got a certain amount of time to get through. The SCM has been changed slightly. They've optimized it for the cloud. So if you're using a remote SCM, which is a very smart thing to do, you can either utilize a network server on yours that's got some backup capabilities and stuff. But if you're only using a PC in your office, you really need to have an SCM somewhere else. We provide one at W Experts that you can get into that allows you to manage your stuff. I'll be upgrading this as soon as possible to get the little more power, a little bit more speed out of the SCM, obviously. And they also have that provided at PCSoft in their cloud. I'm not sure. That's one thing I'm going to ask is where they all store those. If they're all over in Europe, that takes a little bit longer, so I'm not so sure that you may or may not want to do it there. But that was the only thing that ever bothered us as far as SCM is that if it was over in Europe, opening up an analysis was painfully slow. So they say the SCM differential is diff displays is less shy, which is, we thought that was pretty funny.
Hopefully it'll be able to get some dates now,
Yeah, really, and so it's all optimized. It's got a few more tweaks as far as visually branches and things like this. If you have multiple branches and stuff like that, who's done it, when they were done it, which branch was done that way. I haven't looked at that yet. Factory stuff, which we're going to start putting together. I think I should be able to start putting together the whole factory thing towards the end of this year, and we'll be setting up a full training deal on how to use the factory and stuff in your programs. The other thing that they've done is integrated in, and this is all three, so it works beautifully. The whole OAuth2 functionality that Google has thrown out and all the rest of them's thrown out, they have made it as a function. So you have the my identification is OAuth2 parameters. Then you can set up the customer ID, your secret, your URL auth, and your token. And then you set up your token to come back as an authentication. And guess what? You are now got an OAuth2 to either Google, Instagram, Office 365, Facebook, Pinterest, a bunch of them. A bunch of them are already built in. And I'm sure that if we got OAuth2 to some other things and like that, it shouldn't be too hard. I know that one of the new features as far as building web services, they're also allowing REST services. So we're going to experiment when we get into the REST service about actually utilizing an OAuth2 ourselves. So that way we can run an OAuth2 to that functionality. So it ought to be interesting to see how that goes and how that process is done. They're allowing you to now send static arrays as a parameter to a procedure. We'll go on through a few other things here. Images, they've got a new string slicing called string split. So you can use more than one separator in it. Okay. That allows you to not only use, supposed to, I think, and I got to look at it, dashes with commas, things like that, so you can separate them. JSON has really taken off. Well, let's kind of go here. Signatures, you can do a PDF sign on any PDF now, so you can do your own electronic signatures across the board, which is a nice little feature and allows us to do things. They have moved all the GPS functionality also to Windev. If you're using the Windev application on a tablet, and you use the GPS functions to find out where they're at and things like this. That's pretty good. They've got a couple little tablets out here, the Windows tablets that you can do that with. Would be nice. Singleton class, we'll get into what that is when we get into the classes in Arlington. So we'll saw that. They have updated and figured out data source and automated naming. We've had some issues with some things not getting updated because it kind of gets confused. but the data source name is now have an internal name to avoid conflicts, which is a nice little touch there. Let's go on here. This is all the test stuff. Here's the SOAP and REST services. Okay. You can consume almost any web service out there. I've already done that quite a bit, and you can also do all of the REST web services, which is what we're going to get into when we look at the example code that I've already put together. You'll see how I call REST web services, and I'm going to explain a few things with it as well. Now, but you know, it's saying that they've already built that up pretty well, and I think they've done a pretty good job since I've used it. It's been a lot cleaner. The one thing that's always bothered me is, like in classes and things like that, if you create methods and stuff, and then all of a sudden you say, well, this method really needs to be the second method, not the 8th method. Now you're able to move the method from, you know, into a different position inside your screen or close, which is great. I think that's gives you a little bit more flexibility. Automatic code selection by block. I don't know how many people use the Alt function to get blocking done, but what they're doing now is they give you an extra set of keys. Control up, Alt, and up arrow will block out the entire code from like an if end. If you're on the if side, Control Alt and down arrow will block, you know, get you a block out the code completely going the bottom, you know, downwards, which is great. I think that's a nice little feature if you do a lot of coding. JSON, and this is, they have upped their game on JSON big time, and we'll see some of that as well. If you're looking at JSON in the debugger, it was kind of a little bit of a pain because it really didn't give you a good view of it. Now it gives you a full-blown view, just like it does a record structure, with the indentation and the notations and things with it, which is great. Allows you to debug what's coming back on a JSON that you're not aware of what the format is, and allows you to kind of figure out what you need to get, what you don't need to get. Okay, so it works out very nicely. Also, if you use, like we do, a lot of control templates, one of the things that we used to have to do is overload the control, put it on the exec ancestor, and then step through it a little bit at a time. Now, all you have to do is go into the template control and put a breakpoint there, and no matter which screen you're on, it will go into that breakpoint. That is going to be an advantage if you're creating new controls. I'll let Glenn go through all the HF stuff. New dashboards. I'm kind of going down pretty fast now to get down to some other stuff. Get down to the mobile. Okay. Obviously, the first thing that they're on there is the Windev mobile is, you know, you can develop in Windev. The advantage of that is that you can see on this image right here, you got two different screen sizes here. Okay. One is showing you the mobile window and the desktop window. This is showing you two different presentations of the same window. You can do that with Windev by itself and show two different sizes. So I think that you can actually show a size of, let's say you develop on 1920 like I do, and you want to show a 1024. So that gives you okay, how's it going to look in a 1024 by 768 screen instead? Okay, so this is pretty neat. This example here that they're talking about is this is going to run both on a PC and a tablet. This is obviously a Windows Universal type thing, but this will show you on there, because they're doing the mobile, the two different versions of what it would look like. Okay, so you got an adaptive design on an internal window as well, which is, this is pretty neat. I haven't got into it, so I don't know a whole lot about it yet. So let's get down here. Certification on your EXEs. and then it's going through. Oh, telemetry is now added to mobile. If you don't use telemetry and you're running commercial applications out there, or even internal ones, you're missing a good tool. This tool will show you what's being used, what ain't being used. If they're running into errors that you're trapping and not doing anything with or something like that, it'll show you every one of their errors. If they crash the program, it's going to give you an ability to know what that is. So I really highly recommend telemetry. They've also done that to their cloud. So in other words, you can, for I think it's a few dollars a month, hook into their cloud and use their telemetry for you, which would be nice as well. They've upped the deals on the Internet of Things. So you got the MQTT standard, which is what Amazon uses, IoT and Azure IoT. Amazon, all of the deals for Internet of Things that Amazon sells, this is capable of it. And then it's got all of the new functions to be able to call that. So that's where a lot of the Windev stuff came in. New material designs for it, things like that. Just go through, keep on trucking. They now allow properties on Windows Mobile, which is great. They didn't have that before, which that allows me to open up the classes for mobiles a lot better. And so there'll be some absolute changes in the classes for mobile because of that. We might be able to use 100% of the same classes across the board. Oh, this is a nice little feature for those that use the mobile. A lot of times you'll put in something in there and it works just fine. And then when you go over to Android, it doesn't work. And you're thinking, well, what happened? Well, because in Windev it did work, but in mobile it didn't. And this is one of the things that come in. So now it's going to ask you based upon the configuration, or it's going to look at the configuration and say, that's not going to work in the configuration because that's an Android. It won't work in Android. That command won't work in Android. So that's great. That's going to help in debugging quite a bit. They've added a few new things like the flip and the swipe, to pivot, things like this, which is a little deal there to make your Windows application, your mobile applications look very nice. They've also allowed the dashboard control on mobile, which means that you can actually do kind of this and allow them to move around their internal windows, so that way they can kind of set up how they want. Now, that's a pretty big window. I wouldn't use it on a phone, but it kind of depends on how the tablet's in there. They've upped the tables on mobile, allowing to do breaks in the table, as well as saving the map, which is if you do mapping in there with, which we had wrote a whole deal on tracking how people are driving around on the maps using GPS and stuff. Well, this allows you to actually save the map and bring it back up. If they flip off the screen and then go back to the screen, you don't have to rebuild the whole map again. You can just replace it and go on from there. Some predefined mobile windows that people have. This is a nice little feature too. If you're using the Bluetooth functionality on your mobile device, you really want to kind of know whether you're too far away from it or not. So this gives you a list to give you the strength to signal how far away you are from the Bluetooth device, which is pretty nice. Also, they've got full-blown email controls now in mobile, so it allows you to email directly from your mobile program instead of accessing the phone email, which you may not have in a tablet, but this allows you to email directly from this. Of course, native stuff. If you do barcode reading, One of the things that was in mobile that was a bit of a pain is that you basically had to open up the camera to do each read. Now they've done the ability to allow you to actually read multiple ones without reopening the camera, which is a nice little feature as well. So there's a bunch of new things in that is supported, and a lot of that has to deal with the new functions, the new screen functionality, and things like this that's in there. Resizable windows. Variant is now on the Android. What that allows you to do now is full-blown JSON to variant and variant to JSON. So that way you can certainly do a much better JSON type functionality back and forth. HTTP request is there on that as well, so it really kind of helps your mobile to work with it. Like I said, the class has got property now, which is great. That allows you to now you got memory binding with the source to screen and screen to source functions are now available. They've done quite a bit with this. They've done quite a bit. And granted, I'm doing 2-to-1 here for Pete, but we're getting there. Let's see here. Anything else? Okay. I think that we are now at web dev. So I'm going to let Pete have a few minutes and talk about that while I set up my program for everybody to review. So Pete, you want to talk about web dev for just a moment, some of the things that you saw? Hello, Pete. Pete. I think he's gone off and done something. So let's get into my program, and then Pete can come back on the web dev is what he can do. Oh, okay, he's on the phone. So what I've done here is, and let's kind of get to this and let you see what's going on. Well, if you're trying to talk and not hear me, Pete, then you need to turn on your microphone because something's wrong. I am not hearing you. Okay, just skip it for now, Pete. Let's go on. We use a product called Teamwork, and I'm going to show you just their version of it so you can see what's going on. And what this does is it allows us to basically keep up with tasks that you can see, things that need to be done. They got milestone, messages, files. They got all kinds of things in here, different people in there. It's a pretty neat little tool that keeps up with tasks and stuff like this that we've got to deal with, okay? And it works out nicely to kind of do it. But the one thing about it is that they have a little deal is when you're actually doing a task, you can do a timer on there. So you can set this little timer and start working with things or run the timer on there. But the biggest thing is that, I kind of like a desktop version of that, so I can just go over there and see what I need to see. They have a full-blown API, which I put into this class here, that has the projects, it has the task, it has the subtasks, things like this. And one of the things that we get into is calling the functionality. Now, this is all version 22. This is a pre-release beta, so until they release the first beta, you won't be able to play with it. But I can, certainly talk about what I've done so far and show you a little early setup of this thing. On the projects, we're going to be bringing back JSON is what we're going to be bringing back. And when we step through this, I'll show how it works. But I wanted to kind of talk about one of the functionality that they've given us. Most everybody that's done any code has used string build. String build is a nice little function that allows you to say %1 is equal to name, %2 is equal to last name, %3 is equal to city, on down the line, state, zip. So you basically %1, 2, 3, 4, and you've got add name, address, city, state. What they've done now is allowed the functionality by using the open and close bracket and 2% signs to automatically replace the value into your string without having to use string build. Arg ID is the argument ID that's coming in from fetch task list. And what I did in order to do this was went ahead and put the open and close bracket in there and put arg ID within the 2% sign. What happens then is it automatically puts that ID in there, and I don't have to use string build. This is going to make a big advantage when we get into the file management templates, where we have a lot of string build going on in there, that we're going to now, for version 22 file manager classes, we're going to substitute and do this for every bit of it. It's going to make it a whole lot more readable, is what it's going to do. What you can see here is I'm using the HTTP request instead of as a variable instead of a file. I've kind of gotten a little bit better at this and using it. And if you're running into problems with it, let me know, because there's a lot of things I've been able to do with it now that I hadn't done before, and it makes it a lot easier. Now, the Teamwork API uses a very straightforward basic call, but they return JSON, and this is where the JSON comes in. You can see the JSON variant here and things like this. This little line of code here is they use dashes when they return the data. Well, we can't use a dash in a field name, so basically I'm replacing them on purpose. So we get those going forward, and I'm going to walk you through. But what this is going to do here on this main screen is it has underneath there is I put in the code a container column. That container, let me get in here. Oh, I'm sorry, it goes underneath the table. Details. Okay. I'll find it here. There it is. Underneath the GUI, you have says, okay, what is the internal window of the row details? Well, I've set it in there as to be in the IW project detail. And then I told it to display the internal window when hovering over the row. So if my mouse is over the row, all of a sudden it's going to expand out. Okay. Then you can do a left indent, which says, okay, instead of pushing it all the way over to the left side, do you want it to come in a little bit? And I've kind of moved it in just a little bit for that as well. Now, the thing about it is that it makes the table editable because of the container, but it automatically makes all of the other fields read-only. This has been a real pain in the butt, because if I did this in version 21 or do something like this in version 21, I had to go back and update every one of the fields to be read-only, so that way they couldn't, get into edit mode on the field. Even though it didn't do anything, it was still a little bit of a pain in the backside. So now with the container, it automatically did that. Okay, so that gives you some really cool features here. And what I'm going to go ahead and do, this is WMain, yeah, WinMain, yeah. I'm going to run this, and what you're going to do is you're going to see the data, and you're going to see the class drop out of there, and then we're going to step through the code. Okay, so now this has gone out to their REST client and brought in the data. Okay, move a few things around. Now, if I highlight this one, you see how I just dropped down the window, moved it in. And what I did inside the internal window, which we'll see in a minute, is I've got the code for whatever the project name is, and I've got it searching for the subtasks and showing in the table there the subtasks. So now I've got full functionality here of being able to do anything I want in that internal window on my other table. This is a hell of a feature, really a hell of a feature. I really like this as far as developing. Let's go look at the internal window and show you what I did. Now, the table and the information here, I put inside a super control so I could put a little border around there. An internal window, you can't put a border around an internal window, but I can certainly do it in a super control. So I've got a little border around there. That's the way that works. And all this is a listing of each one of the tasks. And all the functionality is here for those tasks, where you can see I'm doing the table add line and finding the different things and putting that information in there for the functions, for the teamwork class. Okay, and it works out very, very nicely, and looks, as you can see, it's you know, does a great job of doing that. And you can also click on the plus sign; it'll bring down multiple ones if you want as you go through it. So I can bring down, you know, now I've got this one, and I can scroll down and see this one, and I can scroll up and see this, you know, whatever I want to do. Now this is, like I said, this is just very, very slick interface. If you got areas that you think you can use this with, I think that it's really kind of awesome. Now I want to show you the debugger on the JSON variant as well. So what we're going to do here is we'll stop, and when I get up here, we'll do a fetch task list, and we'll stop it there, and we'll step through that since it does the argrec ID. So we get the records, boom, and we should stop right there. So let's go into the detail. Now, as we step through this, I want to look at this because this is the value. You can see it says it's 175.166. When I step past this, now the URL, you can see in the image there, or in the tooltip, that it already has the 175.166. That's that automatic string build functionality, which is great. So let's go down here to the JSON variant, which is one thing that I want to do, and I'm going to continue until I'm down there. Now, when I'm looking at the debugger and I want to see what's coming back, you can see it says JSON data there. Okay, if I hit to view the data, I now have, just like a record structure, every bit of the JSON data, so I know what fields are coming back, and obviously an example of the data. So this is an excellent debugger. They've done a great job. So I can look at the status coming back and says, yeah, it's okay. That means I've got data in there. And if there's additional grandchildren and stuff, it'll have trees for each one of those as well. But that debugger for JSON data is a great benefit now. It's a great benefit now. So keep that in mind as well. So that's something, if you're going to have to deal with JSON, or you want to actually do JSON instead of XML, this is going to help you out immensely in version 22. So as we go through this, you can see that once you have the JSON data in a variant, then I can just declare a kind of like a pseudo record of the task list. And where I get that from, if you've never done JSON, what you can do is, well, what tells me what is the number of records? Well, you can see it's right there. Case sensitive. Make sure it's all lowercase, just like it, because it's like XML. JSON, it's going to be case sensitive. You got to keep that in mind. From that point, then literally it's TREC from there. Get all the fields, move them to the task list record, and you're all done. You're completely done. And that's all there is to it. From that, you got your program running, and you've got your list here. We'll continue. And you're off and running again. Okay. Now, one thing that I will be doing is I've got to expand this a little bit more. But if there's going to be a class for teamwork that we're going to have out there. If you want the class for teamwork, we'll be glad to provide that to you as part of our repository items. We've done that with Nexmo and a couple of other ones. Sometimes you need some help from us. If you do, you can always holler and get a couple of support hours, and we can help you through any issues that you have with it. But all in all, the class will make that a lot easier to kind of deal with and work with, because it'll have all the functions and methods and stuff already called. And the only thing you'll have to do is put in a token and stuff like that. And your user ID. It's a little token that you get from them, and that'll settle out. So that's one thing. That's the internal window, which I just had to show you that, because I thought that was probably one of the neatest functions that they allowed. Which means I can also put an add, change, and delete and edit this thing too. It's easy enough to do. The next thing I want to go over is the Word document. I want you to be able to see that, and we're going to we're going to open up the example program first, okay, if I can here. Let's see, that'd be C drive. Just a second here. My projects. And editor test. Okay. This is the editor that I started working with. I hadn't really done a lot. Actually, I want to do a different one that has a lot more items to it. I'll fire that up in a minute. But I put the word control on here. At the moment, I have not seen the internal window for this up here as yet. So it has, it's been some work with it, going through it. But this kind of gave me my first set. And what I did is I created a little document that had just a patient name, a date of birth, and a medical record number. And those are tokens that I've got for it. And then I done a merge, which sets up, I'm doing a doc replace for patient name, date of birth, and medical record number, and just putting something in there. So when I run the little program, I can reset, and there's my document. So this is the test of the information you type in. Patient name, you can see that. When I merge, boom, I now have exactly what I'm looking for. This is pretty fast. Now you say, well, that's great. Now, how can you use it? There's a lot of versioning for doing like templates and stuff like this that you may get into. And I kind of jumped on this to kind of help a guy out, but let me kind of show you how it works in full-blown mode. Because this is what's been working with it, and I'll show you the example code of what we've been able to do, or what I've been able to do with it as a test project. Give me a sec here. And what we've done here is a little bit more to it. I've got templates, which is this right here, which is coded deals that gives you different screens for documents and stuff. Then you can add tokens to it, and you can add phrases to it. So when you run this thing, basically what happens here, take a moment. Let me get it over here. On my other screen, hang on. Okay. The templates here, so if I get that, you can see I've got all that information all set it up in here, and I can add things to it. So if I do this and then go down to the tokens, I got a listing of every one of the tokens here, and if I want the patient, city, and state, I just double click, and there it is. So I do that, and I get current meds. So I can edit this thing as I want. I've got all the different functionality here of the, the font family, the color, all of this stuff is here. Now, here's the key point about this, just to kind of let you know. All of this can be done with underlying manual code as well, okay? So that kind of helps you. If I want that centered, I just hit the center, and I've got the center. So it's a full-blown editor. It really works. When I'm doing a deal here on patient, then I can go down and say, okay, well, what's this? And I want a new document. Well, what I've got this code doing right now is that it automatically, for everyone I've written so far anyway, replace what's already there. This right here, all of these right here, is actually a doc replace function that did that. And that code is, let's see, here we want, let me find what I'm looking for here. We can do that one. all I did was use this line of code here. Doc replace that. I put the percentages prescriptions of what I'm looking for, and then I call my class data to give me the entire list. So I use the classes to my advantage to make different properties in there to return either a set of data if I want to, or listing. Now everything has to come back as text, not numbers. Keep that in mind. So if you're going to return an integer like is order num or something like that, and you want to use this doc replace, well, then you need to do a string, a num to string, so that way it's a string value instead. That's one thing I did run into. Dates and things like that all had to be returned as strings, which is, yeah, it's kind of common as far as that's concerned, but that's how this works. And it has been very nice as far as that's concerned in dealing with stuff, because we could change, I can change it to different things. Like, let's see, find another one there. Got that one. And if I don't have it coded yet to do anything, then it still comes up with the token, the planned medical changes. You can see where it hasn't been converted yet as we go through. This is a pretty neat little system now with the Word documents, as far as if you're having to do things for a client in that arena. I think that the Word document functionality here is absolutely the bomb. It works nicely, very nicely, if you're having to deal with that in an office environment. So that's two of the major features that we've got in Windev and WebDev now. Are you back now, Pete? Can you talk?
Well, let's see. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Awesome.
Okay. So
all right.
Why don't you take over for a little web dev stuff, and then we'll wrap this thing up.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to share my screen, as
I'll scroll down where you want.
Push my internet to the limit. But just a quick hit of some of the key things I'm looking at in WebDev is they have what they're calling the scrolling banner, which is actually a lot of websites have, when you go to their home page, the main body of the home page is scrolling with different sections. There's a control that does that now, and it's a container control, which means you can have other controls and so forth on it. It's a very robust item that give us another way to make our sites much more modern. The HTML5 upload control, which Andy is very excited for, and I know a lot of other folks are excited for. No more Flash. That's been one of the real challenges for folks that are creating websites that are accessed from
Chrome,
Android phones, and Chrome, and those sort of things. Google has made it their mission to kill Flash, and so having the HTML5 upload control is going to be a huge thing.
Mm-hmm.
We can do some custom styles for tooltips instead of depending on the tooltip style of the browser, which I think will be interesting for some of the stuff I do with business rules for the web. Icon fonts, which is right where you're at now, Andy, gives us the ability to scroll up just a little bit. There's been a movement towards, instead of using graphics, they create these icon font libraries now, and they're TrueType fonts that are full of graphics. And by using those as your button graphics and those sort of things, your site's far more responsive and quicker because they're TrueType fonts instead of actual graphic files. So they've done a lot of work to support those, which is going to be very interesting. The authentication with Google, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn, you can now use all those as methods of logging into your website. We've all gone to websites that say, you can either create a user account or you can log in using your Google Plus credentials. We're now able to do that without doing all the OAuth coding and so forth ourselves. The parallax effect, where Andy's at right now, that's another one of those features that you see on a lot of modern news sites, especially on their homepage. In simple terms, it's the ability to have different pieces of the screen scroll differently. So you can have a background image that as you scroll up, it's not part of the page and the whole thing scrolling. The other stuff is scrolling over top of part of the background image, and things resize as you scroll. A lot of those type of features, which again just makes for a more modern site. Hidden pinned controls. I use pinned controls to do the power bar. Most of you that have been through some of my classes and webinars have seen how I always have the log on power bar section at the top of my page, and that's pinned. So as you scroll, that section of the page stays. Well, now there's a way to have that be a hidden pinned. So it's always at the top, but it only appears when the user moves around and so forth. So that's just gives you that little bit of extra screen real estate back, which is always an important thing with the web. The major thing they're doing, and this is what I'm very excited about and looks very promising, is they really focused on enabling a lot more things from browser code. And the move for the web is do more and more via the browser. The languages of JavaScript and jQuery and all those things are getting so much more intelligent. You can do so much more on the browser without ever making those trips back to the server. And the more you can avoid going back to the server, the better your site performs, the less resources you need for your server. So it's a very promising thing. Some of the things that they've done is they've added quite a few new properties to the browser that weren't accessible. They were only accessible as server code before. The key ones for me are the state, the grade, the URL, and the full name properties. Those are some very common things that I do all the time that now I'm able to, I'll be able to do those in the browser instead of having to do them in the server. They've added a lot of new functions, the JSON to variant and variant to JSON, deserialize and serialize, the REST execute that Andy talked about, that's also available in browser code. Now what that means is now if I've got a RESTful service, stock ticker, weather update that I want to show on my web page, well, I can now put that code in browser code, and I can call that RESTful service and use the results of that and display it in my page and do all that from the browser code, which means there was no trip to my server. Currently, the only way for me to do that is I have to call my server. My server has to make that call out to the web service, get the result, and then send that back to the browser. Well, with REST execute, we can do all that directly in the browser code, and our server is not involved at all, which is a real good example of reducing the task load on our web server. URL and code is another handy one. String slicing has been added to browser code, which is, again, a lot of these things just, I know I'll use them, but as much what it does is show how dedicated they are to keeping the web dev moving forward with all the modern techniques and so forth.
I think the planes on the screens too is awesome.
Yeah. We can return multiple values from a browser procedure. We've been able to do that in Windev for a long time, and server code. Well, now we can return multiple values from browser code. We have a variable number of parameters in browser procedures. There are enumeration, combination, and variable types in the browser code now. You can pass parameters by address in browser code now. They've also incorporated the dynamic keyword, which means you can have complex data types that aren't defined. That's a very esoteric thing that's hard to explain. We use that all the time with our file manager classes, and it's definitely something that's promising to see them giving us the ability to do that in the browser. We can do assignment by address now. So when you're making something equal to something else, do that by address where you're not using two different memory chunks in the browser. Internal procedures, better error reporting. We've all done something on our web dev site and got a JavaScript error back.
Oh, yeah.
Well, they say that we should never see JavaScript errors anymore. We're going to see web dev errors that are much easier and tell us actually what the problem is instead of some crazy JavaScript error way down the library somewhere. Andy just touched on it. The introduction of planes is very exciting. We use the heck out of planes in our Windev programs.
Yeah.
And the ability to do that in our web dev programs, I'm thinking that one, it's going to make less trips to a server because things that we now currently call other pages to do, instead we can use a plane to do that. So we won't have to make that trip to the server and get a new page. I've got a suspicion that some of the things that we now do with pop-ups, we're going to change and do planes instead. Yeah, and the example they give is you can create that one-page website where, and you see that a lot with the survey-type websites. They're really one page. Once that page loads, it feels like to the user they've taken you through 8 or 9 pages, but it's really just one page that's changing the plane. So you can do those type of sites. There's now an import wizard for Bootstrap, AngularJS, jQuery UI. So those jQuery libraries and Bootstrap libraries that there are a ton of them out there on the web, they've now made it much easier to incorporate and use them, which, I sure wish they had done that before I spent the last 2 years running with scissors. Andy touched on it, creating RESTful web services. We've had workarounds where we were able to create RESTful web services already, but they were a pain in the butt and hard to maintain. Well, now we can just create a web service like we've been for SOAP web services, and we can actually generate a SOAP and a RESTful web service very, very quickly and easily out of the same project. That means that RESTful web services are much easier to be accessed by other languages that aren't .NET languages. Everyone that programs in PHP will be able to access your RESTful service. So there's a lot of things like that. And the new REST execute function that allows you to do stuff from browser, well, if you create your own RESTful service, you'll be able to call that RESTful service from browser code as well. I don't use it, but I'm sure some guys do. There's quite a bit of new Google Analytics stuff that they've added. They've done a few things in responsive design, mobile first publishing, which just means that your site, you can make your site default to mobile and then upscale to window versus the other way around, which is the only way it works now. It just kind of a difference on how you develop and program. The dashboard control is now responsive. WebSockets is something that's real promising. That's push notifications for the web. We all are aware of push notifications for cell phones. Well, the web has the same type of feature, and it's called WebSockets. That's how Dropbox, Google Docs, those sort of things work, where you have this online collaboration between two people, and when Andy's changing a document, I see his change. Those are being communicated back and forth via WebSockets. Well, we now have the ability to use those WebSockets and respond to those WebSockets and so forth. So Andy's going to write us a web chat program next week using that.
Replace Skype.
I can't wait. I've already uninstalled Skype, so I hope you get to it really quick. There's a just like Andy mentioned, there's a built-in image editor. There's also a built-in CSS editor. Now, of course, I have my own graphics editors. I have my own CSS editors. But the ability to have those things built in and access them directly from within the IDE and not be launching separate programs is a godsend. You know, it just makes it that much more efficient. Now,
I'll be able to eliminate screens for something else entirely.
Yeah, exactly. Currently, to edit a graphic, the first thing I have to do is fire up paint.net, which takes 5 minutes because it always wants to phone home and see if there's a new update. Then I have to figure out what directory that graphic's actually in and navigate to it and save it out and then import it back into my web app. And, you know, it's a process. Being able to just click on that image and say, hey, I want to edit that image and have it checked in and out of the SCM automatically and so forth as I'm doing it, you know, that's going to be far more efficient. So I'm really looking forward to both images and the CSS editing. So those are a few of the new web dev features. And, you know, part of what we're doing today is kind of giving you a preview of what the 2 days of the WX DevCon are going to be. The week leading up to the DevCon, we're going to be doing in-depth classroom style classes, and you can go to the DevCon site and read all about what classes are being offered and sign up. But the actual 2 days of the DevCon will all be short, concise presentations, mainly focused on enhancements and new features of version 22. What we're trying to do with DevCon is give you that leg up so you can hit the ground running with version 22. So, you know, over the next 2 months, Andy, I, and Glenn, and a couple of the new W experts that we've just added to the crew are going to be beating up version 22 and figuring out some of these new features and showing you in Dallas some real world examples of using these new features so that when you get your upgrade and start moving your stuff to version 22, you won't have to say, I wonder what new features I can use. You'll have a good preview of that, and we've already done some of the work of figuring out how they work and how to incorporate them into your projects and so forth.
Absolutely.
So
I wanted
that alone makes the registration well worth it, because you know the hours that we spend figuring that stuff out for you is a good investment on your part.
One of the things I wanted to touch on is that they modified the web dev application server to also be a scheduled task server. One of the things that with a web dev application server is just it sits up there and gives you the pages and stuff like that. It really doesn't do anything. So you always had to write a Windev system things to look for stuff and execute it. The task server now will allow you to schedule a task and have it run out of the application server as needed. So let's say every hour you do something, well, you can have it do it for you. I've got to look into this because we got in our system at American Litho, we've got basically 3 different Windows services that's trying to handle stuff that comes in because it's all a web or internet system, and maybe this can eliminate some of those problems and operate it on the fly, which would be great. That would be great because it would eliminate some external code that we got to keep and maintain, as well as manage and see that it makes sure it's still working and things like this. So I wanted to throw that out to you as well. Of course, they say that IIS configuration is better. We use Apache, so for those who use IIS, great. Do you have anything else on your list?
No, that's it. That's the main ones I'm looking at. You know, obviously, as we dig a little deeper in, you know, we may find one or two more.
Yeah.
And that's why you need to get signed up and come to Dallas. You know, there's going to be a lot of good information.
Yeah. And bring the family too, because Six Flags over Dallas is right just
across the highway.
Across the highway from us, so the family can enjoy Six Flags over Texas and water park and stuff while you learn some stuff from us at the same time.
The Rangers will be playing the Mets that weekend, that week.
I don't think they're in town though, are they?
Yeah, they're playing the Mets in town on Tuesday and Wednesday.
On Tuesday and Wednesday?
Not during DevCon, but during the earlier part of the week. They
okay. Okay, so you know, if you want to watch a baseball game, you can do that too.
Cowboy Stadium does a really cool tour.
Yeah, they do.
That's worth checking out. I mean, there is a ton of stuff to do. So make it a family vacation. Learn a little. You know.
Yeah.
Business expense.
Yep. I agree wholeheartedly. Anyway, that's at www.wxdevcon.com. It's all set up there. You can look through it. Obviously, email us at WExperts, Andy at WExperts.com, or Pete at WExperts.com, or Glenn at WExperts.com, and we'll answer any questions you have as well. I'll post them up there on the Google Plus group. We love to see people from every group outside of America as well as inside. So come join us. Let's have some fun as well as learn some things. And we'll also sit around and discuss, you know, what's next on the list and what you guys are looking to learn or what you're looking to do, so we can try to figure out if we can help you do that. All in all, that's about all I've got. If Pete doesn't have anything else, then all I can say, y'all be good or be good at it. And thanks for joining us today. Talk to you later.